When I bought the Loop Dream, the Quiet 2 and the Experience 2 Plus, I had 4 key questions. Are they comfortable? Do they reduce noise well? Would I wear them in public? And perhaps most importantly, how do they compare to the cheap foam earplugs I've used for years? So the short answer to the first 3 questions is that they are all comfortable to wear, particularly the Loop Dream here. They do reduce a reasonable amount of noise, and I was quite happy wearing them in public because, well, no one gave me funny looks, and they are quite subtle, as you can see. As for the foam earplugs, unsurprisingly they blocked out more noise in the various tests I did. However, the comparison isn't that simple, and there are some situations where I think the Loop could be a better choice. But let's start at the beginning with how much I paid for them and what the differences are between the 3 versions I got. On the Loop website, I paid $39.95 for the Experience 2 Plus and $44.95 for the Dream. I then bought the Quiet 2 on Amazon for $24.95. I basically wanted to hedge my bets in case I wanted to return any. Last time I bought my foam earplugs, they cost $16.92 for 50 pairs. If it's true that you can get 100 uses out of the Loop before needing new tips, and you only use the foam earplugs for one night, then the price is fairly similar in the long run. However, if you use the foam earplugs for multiple nights, or keep going with your Loop tips, then the scales could tip either way in terms of which one's more expensive over the years. All the Loop earplugs come in different colours, and I got the Bubble Blue Quiet 2. Loop says these ones are for focus, travel or napping most of all. The case is a practical keychain style, and I like how the Quiet 2 slot into place and don't fall out when you open the case. I like how all Loop earplugs come with interchangeable tip sizes, much like headphones. The body and tips of the earplugs are made of silicone, so they're the easiest of the 3 to clean as the whole earplug can get wet. I really like how soft and flexible they are, how easy they are to fit in my ear, and how comfortable they are when walking around or lying down. With an SNR of 24 decibels in the European system and a noise reduction rating of 14 in the American system, they should technically block out much less than my foam earplugs, which have a noise reduction rating of 33 decibels, and you will see that when we come to my noise tests. The Dream are one of the more recent Loop earplugs and the ones I was most interested in. They again come with different tip sizes, which is great, and a carry case. There aren't slots for the earplugs in the case though, which means it's easier to pop them in the night, but when you get them out of the case, I find they sometimes tumble out unless you hold it flat, which is kind of annoying. I really like the design of the Dream earplugs though. Compared to the Quiet 2, the Loop is closed to block more sound, and the silicone tip has foam inside, also to block more sound. They're very soft, small and flexible, which is what I want from sleep earplugs really. The SNR is 27 decibels with a noise reduction rating of 21 decibels. So on paper they should block more noise than the Quiet 2 and Experience 2 Plus, but still less than my foam earplugs. Finally, the Experience 2 Plus. These ones came with 2 different sets of 4 tips and optional mutes to block out more noise, so there are quite a lot of pieces. Like the Quiet 2, the carry case has slots to keep the earplugs from falling out and a keychain design. These ones are intended for noisy environments, such as sporting events, gigs, festivals and fireworks. They're designed with an acoustic channel, so the idea is that they reduce noise to protect your hearing without ruining the sound around you completely. Unlike the other 2, the Loop and body are made from durable ABS. The solid body meant they were less comfortable when I used them in bed, but still very comfortable when I was out and about. Loop says the noise reduction rating is 12 decibels without the mutes and 15 with them, so I've just left mine in. I also found the foam tips reduce more noise, but I don't like the sticky feel, so I'm only using the silicone tips. To really understand how comfortable the earplugs feel, I spent the last few weeks wearing them every night in bed as well as when out and about, and I paid particular attention to how they feel when I'm lying on my side or my front, as well as how they compare to other earplugs. I was really surprised by how comfortable the Loop Dream are. I think the combination of the small size, flexible silicone and flat loop that sits snugly inside your ear makes them very practical to use in bed, and I've had no problems lying on my side with them. Since I'm not a fan of wax or silicone earplugs because of how sticky they get, the Loop Dream are the first to come along that I'd be happy to use instead of foam where comfort is concerned. The Quiet 2 were also comfortable to wear in bed, but not as much as the Dream. They're fine on my back, but on my side I sometimes have to slightly adjust my head position to get comfortable, but on the whole they're still pretty good. The Experience 2 Plus weren't intended to be used in bed, but I tested them anyway. Like the Quiet 2, they were okay on my back, so you could use them for short naps, but the solid loop and body meant they dug into my ear when lying on my side, so I won't be using them again in the future as a side sleeper. For outdoor use, I found all 3 Loop earplugs very comfortable, and I've been able to wear them for hours on end with no problem. So the Loop earplugs impressed me where the comfort is concerned, but that's only really half the story. They also needed to impress me where the noise reduction is concerned, especially when I'm wearing them in bed. So let's look at some specific noise tests I did, in which I compared them with wax, foam and silicone earplugs. Okay, it's time for the snoring test. I've already got my snoring recording at the ready. I've played it a second ago and set it to around peaking at 55 dBA with my decibel meter. So let's get it going, and I'm going to start with the Loop Dream and work my way through all 6 and see which best block out the snoring. The foam earplugs did the best, scoring a 7 out of 10. I gave the Dream a 5 and all the others a 4. Considering the earplugs have different noise reduction ratings, you'd imagine the scores would be different. Honestly though, it was hard to tell if any was significantly better than the rest because they all struggled with the snoring. Still, at least they made it a bit more tolerable. Okay, next it's the music test. I'm going to take the Bluetooth speaker, put it at the other side of this wall, blast some music with some bass and see how the earplugs deal with that. Okay, so you should be able to hear that through the microphone coming through the wall. I don't know about you, but there's no way I could sleep through that. So let's have a listen, go through the earplugs again and see how they fare. Once again, the foam earplugs blocked the most noise, and I gave them a 9 out of 10. The Quiet 2 came second with a 7 out of 10. I gave the Dream a 6, the Experience 2 Plus and silicone earplugs a 5, and the Wax just a 4. The Quiet 2 and Dream were very close, so it may have been the fit that made a difference, or perhaps the Quiet 2 just did a better job of blocking some of the bass. Okay, this next test is in response to one of my subscribers on YouTube who was saying that they've got a problem with the sound of dogs, so this one is for you. If my neighbours work from home, they're going to hate me today. As I expected, the foam earplugs blocked the barking best, but I only gave them a 6 out of 10 as a lot of noise still got through. The Quiet 2 and Dream scored a 4, and the other 3 only scored a 3. Not to be defeated though, I went off on a little tangent to see if I could beat the barking. I found I could mask it completely by playing pink noise or music on the Apple AirPods Pro 2 or the Soundcore Sleep A20 headphones. But I had to play it very loudly, which is far from ideal. The only way I could create silence was to wear foam earplugs and my Bose noise cancelling headphones 700 over the top. I could also block a lot by combining the Loop Dream and headphones, but not all of it. The issue there, however, is sleeping on your side or front with the headphones on, but at least there are some options to experiment with. As well as doing those specific tests, I have a couple of other points to share. Firstly, when I'm in bed at night, I can often hear the sound of traffic, enough that I have to try and edit it out of my videos when I'm recording in the bedroom. I found that the Loop Quiet 2 and Dream earplugs block that background traffic noise completely, but the occasional speeding motorbike or loud truck still gets through. Secondly, they also do a good job if there's TV or people talking in another room. Again, it depends how loud it is, but for moderate noise levels they block it out quite well. So the Experience 2 Plus here didn't do too well in my noise tests, but that's partly because they were designed to filter noise rather than to block out as much as possible. So to find out how well these work, I've been wearing them around town, on trains, and one night gave them a really tough test, which is the Lewis Bonfire and Fireworks Night in the UK. So just to warn you, there are some flashing lights and loud banging sounds coming up. Around town and on trains, I found they reduce all types of noise a bit, but I can still hear people talking nearby very clearly, as well as announcements.
We'll shortly be arriving at Burgess Hill.
The best use though was at the Lewis Bonfire Parade, which is an amazing night but incredibly loud. Here I found the Experience 2 Plus were all I needed to cope with the noise. I particularly liked how quickly and easily I could insert and remove them when there was a quiet moment, without needing to touch the tips like I would with foam. I also liked how stylish they looked compared to my basic foam earplugs. My only criticism was that they reduced the sound of the people around me most of all, which made the atmosphere feel a bit less lively. But it was a trade-off I was willing to make to ensure I didn't go home with my ears ringing. Okay, let's talk about the occlusion effect. This is something I noticed with all 3 loop earplugs and most earplugs in general, and it's one of the ways that you know that you fit them correctly. However, I noticed that chewing is particularly loud, so if you're the kind of person that would like to wear these in a busy restaurant or bar, for example, then that is something to keep in mind. And I also found that when you're talking to someone and you're making typical kind of listening or agreeing noises, that sounds quite bassy, like, all those sort of sounds that you might make, you're going to really notice those. In bed, the occlusion effect is there too, which doesn't bother me, but I know some people are sensitive to the sound of their own breathing, so it is something to keep in mind. Okay, it's time for my final verdict and who I think might like these earplugs. Personally, I was really surprised by how much I like the Loop Dream, and I'm definitely going to keep these. They're very comfortable to wear in bed, and they do a decent job of blocking out a lot of lower level noise, such as my partner's light snoring and distant traffic. I also liked how I can actually hear my partner if she talks to me when I'm in bed, whereas I have to remove one of my foam earplugs if she asks me something. I also think that if you don't like the feeling of foam earplugs and haven't had any joy with wax or silicone either, then they're definitely worth trying. However, if you're okay wearing foam earplugs and you need the best noise reduction possible, then there are many foam earplugs that will block out significantly more noise than these. For that reason, they won't be completely replacing my foam earplugs. Even though I'm going to keep the Dream and try them again in the future, I know that I'll still need the foam ones if I want silence on a particularly noisy night. I also plan on keeping the Experience 2 Plus. Even though I'm not going to use them regularly, I think it's really good to have them for a loud night out like a gig or a concert. I actually think Loop have done a really good job in providing a way for people to look after their hearing without worrying about the way they look. I have several friends whose hearing is suffering now, and dancing next to oversized sound systems in nightclubs in the 90s may have had something to do with it. None of us ever wore earplugs in those days, but looking back, some of us might have done if these existed. As for the Quiet 2, I'm considering sending these back. I feel like they're not as comfortable as the Dream for sleep, and they're not as practical as the Experience 2 Plus for going out, so if I'm going to hang on to those two, I don't really see the point in keeping these. Having said that, if I was only going to keep one, I'd be tempted to pick the Quiet 2, especially if you mainly sleep on your back and you don't want anything shiny in your ears when you go out. They were also the easiest ones to clean and quite a lot cheaper than the other two. Please keep in mind that there are other versions of the Loop earplugs, and I only covered the three that most interested me in this video. Now, as much as I like the Loop earplugs, there are plenty of other ways to reduce or mask noise, so for some other ideas, maybe take a look at these ones. Thanks for watching this video, sleep well.